Hello everyone, it's Matt and welcome to March update on my PV and energy system. So a quick overview, I have 4.9 kilowatt P of south-facing solar panels, and this goes into my 13.5 kilowatt hour all-in-one battery by GivEnergy. A few people were asking about how the all-in-one works in terms of schematics compared to a standard hybrid battery. So it's a little different. As you can see, we have the gateway system that goes in between your smart meter and your consumer unit, and everything connects into it. So your battery, your solar, and if you've got a car charger, that all goes into there as well. And that means if there's ever a power cut, the gateway can isolate the incoming grid, and then you can carry on as normal. So the highlight of March is we produced a huge amount of solar for once. Compared to February, where we had a really wet and windy month, March was actually really nice. We produced 373 kilowatt hours, which is about just over 12 kilowatt hours per day. As I've only just got my solar system this year, I don't have any other years to go off, so I'm using the PVGIS estimate model to try to work out if I'm on target. And as you can see, PVGIS estimated 375 kilowatt hours and we produced 373, so bang on for that month. In terms of year to date, we're up to 705. That's brought up our daily average from 5.5 kilowatt hours per day in January and February. We're now up to 7.7 kilowatt hours. Going forward from April onwards, this should rapidly increase. Now for the costs and saving, it's a bit complicated this month, as halfway through the month I swapped from Octopus Go to Octopus Flux. Now Go is a 2-band tariff. You have an off-peak or 4 hours off-peak at 9 pence, and then a peak rate of 30 pence. And for the export, it's just a standard rate of 8 pence. Flux, on the other hand, is a tri-band tariff for both the import and export. So you get slightly less hours on the off-peak. You only get 3 hours from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. and it's substantially more at 17 pence compared to the Go rate of 9 pence. You then have a peak rate from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and that's at 40 pence. And the rest of the time it's at 28 pence. Now you might be wondering, why would you ever swap from Go to Flux? And the answer is, it's the export rate. The export for Flux at standard rate is 17 pence, but at peak rate between 4 and 7, you get 29 pence. So as long as you're producing a large amount of solar PV energy and you've got a battery to store it, then you can then dump in that peak period, you can actually make a substantial amount of money. So as you can see, for the first 14 days I was on Go and I got a credit of £6.80, which was helped massively by the DFS events. We had 3 events at the beginning of the month. They were only half-an-hour ones and they were quite low paying. From the 15th onwards, I swapped to the Flux. No DFS events in that period, although I did have some extra Octopus points come in, which is why the 13 pence has appeared. Overall, for the entire month, I got a £20.25 credit, and that's compared to a standard variable rate cost of £85.28, which is a saving of £105.53. If we look at the day-to-day costs, we can say which days are generating large amounts of credit and which ones are expensive. Sadly, the first of the month I've missed off because my Home Assistant was only capturing the last 30 days instead of 31, so that's disappeared off. But that was a DFS day, so that is a good credit day. And you can see on the 15th is when I swapped. I didn't realize that when I asked to swap, it would actually apply retrospectively. That's why on that day, I'd obviously imported a lot in between midnight and 4 when the Go tariff was cheap rate, but when I swapped to Flux, that suddenly became the peak rate. And when I swapped to Flux, that suddenly became the standard rate. So that's why that day is quite expensive. Then for the next 4 days, they hadn't sorted out my export side to the tariff. So that's why it's a bit flat. But finally on the 20th, that's when they got the import and export working correctly. And as you can see, I've then made a large amount of credit from the remaining days. The 2 days where we had really poor solar, I think we're probably generating about 3 or 4 kilowatt hours on those days. The actual cost is ever so slightly more than it was when I was on Go, but compared to the days where it was really high solar and I barely made a credit, probably what 20p, 15-20p there. If you look at the similar time when I'm on Flux, I'm making multiple pounds. So if we compare month on month, March to February, imports increased a little bit, but 2 more days in March compared to February, so that's not really surprised. The amount estimated to be generated has shot up from 217 to 375. This really is the beginning of the nice weather and the high solar output. But you can see the actual output has shot up massively. February was very wet and windy and dull, and we barely made anything at all. So 156, and we've gone all the way up to 373. Also means that with that extra 220 kilowatt hours made, we've exported pretty much all of it. So that's why our export has increased over 500%. Costing wise, like I said before, the DFS events have been slowly winding down and they've now stopped. So less made in March compared to February. But because of all the export, our final bill has gone from just over £5 to just over £20 credit. In terms of usage, as you can see, the lovely green bars of exporting have increased massively. That's generating huge amounts of income for me. In terms of the house, it's about the same. That's probably just over 9 kilowatt hours a day, which is in line with the rest of the months. Thank you for watching this brief overview. If you're not with Octopus Energy already and are thinking of joining, by all means, please use my sign-up code. That will take £50 off your first bill. Thanks for watching, and if you're not subscribed, please click that button, and I will see you next month.